Welcome to Between Three Witches, where we talk about witchcraft in plain sight, everyday magic lived honestly. And it's hosted by three witches me, Gail the Witch Next Door,
Me, Vicky, the Wheelie Green Witch.
And me, Anon.
the Anonymous Witch. We all walk different paths with different levels of experience, but we share a deep respect for the craft as it is actually practiced and not the dramatized version that people expect. In today's episode, we ask a really big question. How do we genuinely connect with our ancestors and our spirits without the nonsense? And this question was from one of our listeners on my Patreon, Diane. And it's such a good question. We wanted to do a whole podcast about it. So before we dive into that, how have we all been since our last podcast? Anon, what have you been up to? How are you?
Good, apart from my ear infection. No, I'm good.
Oh
All
no.
lovely. I know, on antibiotics. It's blissful. But no, I've had a lovely, relaxing couple of days, spending it with family. It's been lovely.
You can hear that I've been burning the candle at both ends. So I've had a really good week, but I was out last night. So we're going to have my male version of my voice for this podcast today. But yeah, so it might start creaking a bit as we go through. But no, I've been really good, really, really busy as always. The real life work's taken over at the moment, which is a little bit boring, but very incredible. It's very important. So I need to keep plugging away at it.
These things have got to be done, haven't they?
Exactly. What have you been up to, Vic?
Well, loads of real life stuff, loads of real life stuff. And then on top of it, banging out loads of information and illustrations. Been banging out loads of
I know.
illustrations ready for the PDF. So all of my spare time's doing that at the moment.
I absolutely am blown away by your illustrations that you've been sending out. I know Anonymous has as well.
Yeah,
Thank
beautiful.
you.
So amazing. And for anybody listening, make sure you go over to Vicky's Patreon where you can see all of that as well and access it because it's free as well, right, Vic? I know you've got some tiers coming, but
Yeah, I've got some
some
tiers
content
coming, but for the
extra.
moment they're free. I want free access.
Yeah.
And that does come across like it has less value because it's free and it's that perceived value thing. However, I am really, really aware that not everybody can afford exclusive artwork, basically. So it's nice for me to be able to give some information, have some artwork, get your grimoires going, and then I can start putting the paid tiers in for those who can afford it. But the free one will always have something there for everybody.
Yeah, but you also put an awful lot of work into that. This isn't like you say, just this is an illustration that you've created and put your effort and energy into. So yeah, it's amazing. And yeah, I'm really proud of you.
Oh, well, it's
Wish
a day
I
job as well. So,
Yeah, I wish I could be as creative as that. But there we go. Okay, so shall we get into today's topic then, which is connecting with ancestors and spirits without the nonsense. So, girls, what do we think that ancestor and spirit work actually means, or what does it mean to you?
For me, I think that I have seen a lot on social media and I have read where it's this idea of calling out to ancestors, trying to connect. I think for my practice anyway, it's they are part of me, especially the biological link, the physical bloodline of ancestry. Um, but that also includes friends and loved ones. It doesn't necessarily have to be a blood link for me, but the ancestors are also very much connected to the land for me. They are the lakes, the standing stones. They have always been associated with that ancestral presence for me. And I don't view it as calling out to connect. They walk alongside me, they are within me, they are part of me. And it's about, quietly recognizing them and showing my thanks to everybody that has walked a path before me and giving them my thanks for that.
Okay, yeah, ancestors, exactly the same as a non, or very, very similar to a non, actually. It's not the big ritual summoning, I'm going to summon my ancestors. Actually, some of it is some of the genealogy. Where do we go? Doing some of the history, sort of getting to know some of my family line, but it's not all my family line. It's everybody who walked before me. My ancestor work, sometimes it's lighting a candle. Every day I have a chat with them. It's difficult to pinpoint, isn't it? Because it's
Yeah.
such a daily practice. Just having a chat
Yeah.
lighting a candle. Samhain's a big thing for me. That obviously isn't a daily practice, but I do very much. I do the whole dumb supper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, when we were talking about this podcast specifically, it got me thinking about the way that I work with my ancestors currently versus the way that I did maybe 2 years ago. Because I've been going through a bit of a grief cycle, like my brother died just over a year ago, that ancestor work has kind of taken a back foot. So it's still there, and I still have the occasional conversation, but much more at the start of my practice, it was a big part of it. Understanding, like I say, my history, where I've come from, what my bloodline looks like, and also what it looks like just generally around my genealogy and how that fits into my ancestor work. But I think grief has taken, for me, it's meant that I've had to put that on hold a bit, because, you know, I'm avoiding the big conversations with my ancestors, and I know that I should. And I've only just put up a picture of my brother, for instance, because it's just not something I can lean into immediately. And I guess that might be my call out to some people starting their practice, that they haven't yet connected to their ancestor work. And that's okay. Like I've put it down for a little while, and it's still there, but it's not as prominent as my spirit work. So I'm working much more with the spirits of the land and of the energies of trees and plants and things like that. That's part of my practice at the moment. Doesn't mean I'm not working with my ancestors, but it just means I've got a bit of a different balance. So it doesn't all come at the same time. And I think that's important as well. And some people don't work with their ancestors at all, although I would recommend that. It's a huge part of witchcraft, actually. And again, I'm not telling people how to practice, but it's really important to understand where you've come from and what all of that ancestor bloodline looks like as well, if you can.
Yeah, do you know what I think? I do think it's important, and this is not to say to people how to practice, but the way that folklore, the way that folk traditions, the way that witchcraft evolved was an oral storytelling passed down. So okay, I might still use the recipe for a cake that my grandmother taught me, or grow a plant the way that my grandmother taught me how to do that. However, she was taught by those who came before her, and those who came before her, and those all the way down. And it was a form of survival, and it was a form of community. Little acts like making a family recipe is actually ancestral.
Yeah.
You know, we don't necessarily need, I don't personally believe that those loved ones of mine, my ancestors, and the lines down are waiting in a big waiting room, waiting for me to summon them with some amazing ritual. No.
My ancestors would be really
like Beetlejuice.
They'd be
right,
so
literally.
pissed off. Imagine going, I need you now. Come on the table, please.
Exactly. Do you know what? I honestly think, you know, they've probably got a heads up. They'll know, you know, they're keeping an eye on things, but they're not focused purely on me, and they are not waiting to be summoned. This is just my belief. And actually, I think if I try to do that, knowing the people who have passed, who I love very, very dearly, and I have conversations with them, and sometimes they answer and sometimes they don't, they would fall off their spiritual chairs laughing at me if I tried.
What about you then, Anon? Do you have like daily practices or really regular practices that you build connection with your ancestors?
Yeah, I do. Whether someone would say they're a practice, is different forms of interpretation, I think. I mean, for me, you know, the land holds ancestor energy. It holds the spirit of the land. As you both know, I've talked about this many times with you both privately. A lot of my ancestor work is done through my dream working. I connect with them very regularly in my dreams, but I think it's important for me as well to have that connection verbally, like what Vicky was saying. You know, a lot of things have been passed down traditionally, you know, orally, storytelling, practice with somebody, you know, showing you how to do it, a certain planting. And that's the oral tradition. And if it's safe for me to do so, I will speak to them out loud incredibly regularly. And I will say, you know, hello, or, you know, love you to the ones that I remember. But I think what you mentioned, Gail, as well, is incredibly important, is that we have to connect into our own emotional well-being. for whatever reason you want to pause something, it's not saying you're not going to, it's just for now you're pausing for your own emotional health, then that's your pathway for now. And it doesn't mean that that's wrong. You know, you're connecting to other forms of ancestors in different ways. And I think when we hear the term connecting to ancestors, a lot of us may instinctively think bloodline or some form of family line. And in my case, anyway, it's not always that. It's on a much deeper level.
So can I ask you then, and it might be a bit of a personal question, but when you say you do dream work, how do you go about that? Is it something now that is just, it comes naturally, or do you ask before you go to sleep? Is there a certain practice that you do in order to connect during sleep, or is it that you'll just accept the messages when you randomly get them? I guess for people who maybe have not really thought about dream connections before.
Well, if I ask 9 times out of 10, they don't come through.
Right.
And that's me and my ego, you know. And again, very much like what we've been saying, this idea of commanding or summoning, you know. For me, that connection has always been there within my dream workings. They pop in as and when, sometimes more regularly than others. Sometimes it's just that visualization of their face, or sometimes it's just knowing that their spirit is there within my dream world. Sometimes it's that feeling, knowing that I am protected when I'm doing my astral travel. Sometimes it's knowing that they're there in the room. But again, it's down to the practitioner with what feels right with you and what sits right with you and what is acceptable. But yeah, I speak to them within my dream state many times. I connect with meditation as well. As I said, you know, I don't view it as they're somewhere else and I'm trying to connect. They are around me, they walk beside me. And that's how I view that connection. They're always there.
Yeah, that's really valid. And I think actually just going back on what I was saying around it's not part of my practice now. It is, because everything I do is around my ancestors and spirit guides. And when I pull an oracle card, I'm asking for direction, or when I'm meditating, I'm meeting either parts of myself or spirit guides. And I have met some of my ancestors, which is why I kind of put a bit of a barrier into doing that, because I'm just not quite ready. But again, I don't have ancestor altars, but it doesn't mean I'm not working with their energies or giving gratitude for
Absolutely.
like Vicky and I were talking before, right? Just before we went on about age and how grateful we feel for growing older. And we're not old by any stretch of the imagination, but actually giving gratitude just for simple things like that. We're giving gratitude to the spirits that are continuing to hold us, even if we're not asking them to.
Yeah.
Being grateful for the simple things is about, you know, that's also an offering, isn't it? And saying, you know, thank you for holding me up at this wonderful ripe old age of 47.
I love that terminology, what you said, you know, giving thanks to them holding, you know, to hold you. I love that analogy. Beautiful.
My brother did tell me, though, when he was sick, because obviously we knew he was going to pass, he did tell me that he wouldn't come and see me after. He said, it doesn't matter how much you talk to me, so I'm not coming back. So I will. It's just not right now, but I will get you.
Do you know what, though?
I will summon you.
I tell you what, though, my sister passed 2002, and yet I am to have a conversation with her.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm too close to the situation, and that's now a really, really long time ago.
Yeah.
I feel her around occasionally when I really, really need her, but that came years afterwards, absolutely years afterwards. Now, my grandmother, absolutely, she was there, spot on, like, I've got your kiddo. Yeah. And I know exactly where my grandfather, actually, I smell his, I know when he's around, he used to smoke a particular type of cigarette.
There's a lot of people who come into a spiritual practice and witchcraft practice as a focus to connect with a loved one that's passed. That's quite normal, and you see this an awful lot. And I mean, I do tarot readings, and a lot of the time people are really hopeful that they're going to get messages through the tarot, which is not how it works, but to connect with people that they've lost. So I've had lots of deep conversations with people who are really deep in grief as well. But actually, witchcraft isn't about that connection. And like you say, Vicky, you've not really even connected with your sister, and I probably won't with my brother, and I am okay with that. I know he's there.
I have a tendency to be very sensitive to spirit and conversations. And if anyone's seen one of the TikToks, I think I actually captured a voice when I was doing a voiceover. Yeah.
I remember.
Do you remember that? Yeah. And I tend to be very, very sensitive. However, I do put up boundaries a lot because of sensitivity. Because sometimes one of the people I would like to sit down, if I'm going to call a spirit in, one of the people I'd like to sit down and have a conversation with is actually my sister. Another person is my best friend. She hasn't come through either. I think they're just there sort of going, yeah, we've got you. If you think we're talking to you, forget it. Yeah. Just like, but that's okay. It takes a little while to get used to the idea that actually maybe I want this too much. And that's also okay. Mm-hmm. So you're probably going to have random Bob from who lived in the house or lived on the land from 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, whenever. Then you will more likely, in my experience, connect with somebody that you desperately want to. It just seems to be the way it works for me.
So Vicky, do you have any ancestor or spirit altars or anything that you dedicate specifically for the work that you do?
At Samhain, yes. Mm-hmm. Other than that, to be fair, not a lot. Not a lot, because they are around me all the time. Not all the time. I mean, don't get me wrong. Nobody wants Granny in the bedroom, okay? I'm just saying.
Well, if you listen to the last episode, I remember distinctly that Anon put protections at her bedroom door.
That's exactly right.
Right. Yeah. So boundaries need to be in place. Boundaries need to be in place.
But that's a really valid point, right? Because when we start doing this work, people do want to get the messaging, but sometimes that can be really overwhelming or powerful, and it stirs a lot of emotion in us. Like I was saying, I'm very aware at the moment that I'm too griefy to be dealing with some of that. So I've put my boundaries in place, and that protection, not in a scary way. We can say no and, move things aside to protect our own well-being as well, right?
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine. You tell you what, you can ask other ancestors or those who have come back, those who have come way before when, you can ask them to give you a hand. Actually, can you help me? Can you help me have this boundary? They'll do that for my own good, because actually I won't be able to deal with what is going on. And you desperately want to deal with it, and you desperately want to have a good old chat. But yeah, boundaries are a thing. And like I say, nobody wants Granny in the bedroom. Nobody wants to feel that they are being looked at in their private lives. So boundaries exist for a reason, and I think it's really important to say.
But to be fair, the spirit realm is very different to here, right? They don't view our sex lives or our toilet, whatever the word is. Not need to. They won't see it because they're human things that we do in human form.
Absolutely, I know a lot of people worry about this.
They're having orgies, and I'm sorry if that's disrespectful. But I don't. I knew you'd like that, Anon. I knew you'd like that.
The thing is with it is, and it sounds like we're being disrespectful. It's not. It's experience in working with it.
And what about you, Anon? Do you have? And I guess I want to ask the question as well about, when we say we ask for help or ask for guidance or ask for support, it's reciprocal, right? And there's offering, and like the gratitude thing, like I said, that's part of my offering practice, I guess, just more broadly. But do you have anything like ancestor altars, or is there certain things you do as a sense of gratitude when you're doing your work?
If you saw what I would class as my ancestral altars, they wouldn't look like your typical altar that we see on social media. It can be something as beautiful as a photo frame on the wall. It can be the little knickknacks that, grandparents have left me. My grandmother leaving me her witch's silver bell. That is on one of my main altars. But my grandfather also left me his ring. And whenever I think I'm going into quite a difficult situation, I will have that on my person, whether it be on my necklace, whether it be in a pouch, on me, in my coat pocket or in my purse. But, very much like wards, wards don't have to look like these beautiful, ornate glass jars. They could be something as beautiful as a houseplant right by the front door. And, there are people that can't have the altars that look incredibly aesthetic because of where they're living. You know, it could be shared housing, or perhaps they can't practice as openly as perhaps what we can. And that's me saying that as the anonymous witch for you in the corner. Having, like, for me, there are certain personal anniversaries and dates where in our tradition, we will light a very simple candle, place on the windowsill, have the curtains slightly drawn, and that is our representation of showing the spirit that you're still in our thoughts. We still love you. We always will. And in a way, it's like a beacon on the windowsill, to bring them, quote unquote, back home, even though I know they're with me all the time. And my gratitude, my thanks to known ancestors or ancestors of the land is to just very quietly and respectfully speak to them in my own way, whether that be verbally or internally. You know, with the ancestors, it's ensuring that I pick up litter on my way, ensuring that, you know, I don't drop at anything with, you know, me knowing about it, respecting that ancient landscape, respecting the wildlife, and just saying thank you and showing my love and gratitude in the ways that I can with my ancestors. And that is on a daily basis.
I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? Nobody looks at having a picture frame of family members, even way back when, or inherited items, or even, I don't know, that somebody personally planted a certain plant, you know, and now you have the great grandbaby of that particular plant cutting or something. They don't look at that as ancestor work. And the lighting of the candles, absolutely. And again, it doesn't have to be a shrine, and it can be an LED candle and a nod, and that's enough.
So for me, actually, and it feels like I'm contradicting myself because I don't do ancestor work, not specifically, but I also do all of the time. And today's one of those harder days because we've got 2 anniversaries. So it's my wife's mum's anniversary, so it's my mother-in-law's anniversary today, 5 years, and it's my nan's as well on the same day. My mum's mum, 7 years, and I've got a candle lit behind me. I did that without even thinking because that's just part of, you know, just remembering. But also the whole day has really been sent about remembering and honoring those people and what they stood for and what they meant. And you don't have to do, I mean, I'm talking about very specific bloodline ancestors, but even like you said, Vicky, at the beginning, this is about our history as from witchcraft as well, and spending time honoring what people that have been before have gone through, and saying that out loud as well, and talking about what was important to generations before, what was important to our land spirits before, what was important to our bloodline ancestors as well. Keeping those things alive is also a great way of giving gratitude and recognizing them, because they can hear us. Even if my brother says he can't, I know he can. But all of those things are really important as well. And like I said, I may not do it as literally, but it is ingrained in all of the things that I do.
That's the thing, isn't it? You're just not naming the things that you do, and people will be doing this all of the time. I don't think of a family that doesn't sort of give a nod to, oh, granddad passed, brother passed, mum or dad did. We're doing ancestor work all of the time. We don't necessarily name it as that's what it is. Even telling folk stories that have come down through traditions is ancestor work. But people will say, how are you working with your ancestors? And they expect this big ritual, spiritual hoo-ha, you know. And don't get me wrong, there are times where you do that, but for the majority, on a daily practice, it's walking past a frame and saying, you're right, granddad. Okay,
so signs and symbols and how spirits communicate. What's your experience of this, Anna? How do you know that you're getting those messages, and do you know?
I spoke to you about this the other day, didn't I, where I was leaving you a voice note and I had about 2 magpies fly past me. Magpies for me have always been incredibly significant on a personal level from a very, very young age. So for me, magpies are the messengers. from my world into the other. I do love those physical signs. I do love those feathers on my pathway. Sometimes it can be as simplistic as in the summer where there is, no breeze, and all of a sudden you just have that gentle kiss of a breeze on your cheek. And that instinctively takes you to a specific person. And there might be no rhyme or reason why you would think about that person, but that person instinctively comes in, and I'm just filled. It's a separate feeling. I am filled with just unconditional love when that message comes through. I have chicken skin, as I call it, the goosebumps on my arms. And I just have this glow that flows over me, and the gratitude that I give back. It's also sometimes that smell of a scent that reminds me of my grandmother's perfume, or perhaps something specifically she would cook, and it instinctively takes me back there. And yeah, there are times that I'll ask, can you show me a sign that you're there or that you can hear me? I know instinctively they can. And I'll get days where I have sign after sign after sign. And the more elaborate I ask for them to be. But I think at some point, you have to stop and recognize, like what Vicky was saying earlier, they're not all around waiting, to come in at your every whim. There are other things that they're doing. But just knowing that they're there, that feeling and that emotion, you know when a loved one is close, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, and it's about understanding what to look for as well, because I guess when you're new on this path as well, it can be, you're expecting very explicit signs and messages. And I've said this before, like, wouldn't it be amazing if all the spirits came to us and just told us what we wanted to know? But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. There's a lot of deciphering, and I ask for messages occasionally, and I actually did that this week. Just needed a bit of reassurance, right? Just there was something I was asking for, and it came in a very different way. So I wanted to find a bone. I know this isn't for everybody, but I connect really deeply to animal spirits, and those kind of offerings back to me feel like a very reciprocal relationship. And I didn't, but what I have found, and I've seen it every single day since, was a dead fox. And although it brings a wave of sadness, and I said to my wife today, because we were walking past, I said I might bring a shovel down and bury it, actually, because it's still there. I think 3 or 4 days later. I also know that that's a really important message for me, because it's about the cycles of life. And in the transition from life to death, and but it might not be for everybody, and it does, like I said, it does make me feel a certain way. But I also know that wasn't my specific message being answered, but it was my message being answered in a different way. So I think when we're looking for signs or asking for our spirit guides to give us some direction, we have to be open to the fact that the messaging isn't going to come as black and white as we expect it.
Yeah. That's a really that's a really important point, because I've seen some funny videos on social media. The classic one is, I've seen a crow. Is that a sign? And they say, no, it's just a crow. But I think for me, I know when it's a specific sign because of the emotion behind it, because of the feeling behind it, because of that inner glow that I feel. Or it might be a sign as a warning, a trepidation as well. I've learned to adapt how I respond to certain signs. And yeah, there might be 16 crows one day outside of my house. If I feel nothing per se with that, then I know that isn't specifically a sign for me, but it's something that I will remember and note down to see what comes my way over that day or the next.
Yeah, that's really important. And we shouldn't be walking around all day long asking for signs. Like, that's a really a bit of a red flag, as I would say, in terms of like anxiety as well, because we shouldn't be living our lives always needing to get signs and symbols in order for that validation. So we need to, the great social media word, discernment, but it's so true. and it needs maybe rephrasing for some people, but just understanding when's the right time to ask after you're doing the gratitude. You can't just be demanding, like you said, Vicky, come and help me sort my life out for me. Like you need to be giving praise, giving gratitude, doing the altar work if that works for you, a small altar for ancestors, old, new spirits, all of those kind of things. And then we shouldn't be looking for signs and everything, because most of the time it is mundane.
I was going to say, it's that mundane before magic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Birds fly, birds molt, and feathers fall all the time. And this is going to probably put people off. And they're going to say, no, but it's a particular feather. Okay, well, what birds have you got around? Now, I live in the countryside. We get a lot of feathers. Have I had a feather as a sign? Absolutely. And it was very, very specific. Very specific. My best friend had just died. I didn't ask her for a sign. I was in so much shock. So much shock. It was completely out of the blue. And we had a joke about pigeons. It was a thing. We had an in-joke. You know how you do with your best mate? You've got an in-joke about pigeons and pigeon feathers. Now, we've got a lot of pigeons here. A lot of pigeons. Do I think that every pigeon feather in the garden is a sign from her? No, because they're not, because birds molt. That's the mundane of it. What the sign was is my lounge window was open very, very slightly. And my reading glasses, because I'm old, I have reading glasses.
Hey,
my reading glasses
thank you.
were on the windowsill. And a pigeon feather had come in through the window and rested in between the nose piece and the glass piece of my reading glasses. I actually posted it on TikTok because I was stunned. I turned around to my husband and I said, did you put that there? Because that's my first thing. You messing with me? Did you put that there? And it was just a few days after my best friend had died unexpectedly.
Wow.
It was, I knew that was something that I did know. I wasn't looking for her. I was still in shock. I wasn't looking for signs. I thought my husband was pranking me because I was no, I'm going to be very mundane with this. And actually that was her just going, it's all right. I'm on the other side now. It's all cool. Yeah. Actually, there was another message with it, but obviously that's personal.
But that's like what Anon was saying, though. There was an emotion around that message.
Yeah.
But there's a feeling around it, like I talked about the fox and the way that resonated for me, and Anon as well, like saying she feels that spark as well. And you knew like the energy around that. It wasn't
Absolutely.
just a feather and you're going, fuck's sake, chuck it out the window. It was meant because the emotion was there.
Yep.
And Phil wasn't messing around, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And we have never had a feather coming through the window before or after that, ever. Mm-hmm. And for it to land exactly where it landed was, I mean, the odds of that were just ridiculous. But do we get a lot of pigeon feathers? Absolutely. We also get a lot of crow feathers. We've got a lot of crows. So no, they're not all signs. And do I think we should be asking for signs all the time? Do you know what? We are on this earth to live a human existence and to learn the lessons. And sometimes asking is okay. If you've ever had young toddlers who go, ma'am, 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 why? You can see what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Your spirits, your ancestors have told you that you're a pain in the ass, haven't they?
Basically. I've been doing this a long time. Yeah. But I took the message. Yeah, okay, I won't keep asking. Yeah.
And this leads me on to my next question, right? It's like where we're talking about we can't keep asking, but like our companionship with our spirit guides and our ancestors versus that dependency on having them. And it's not unusual, like I said, to come to the craft because of grief or loss, and start going down that rabbit hole. But I guess it's that sensible approach about using our craft and our ancestry work and our connections as a great way to connect and feel into ourselves and not escape from reality. Like say we're on this planet to live a life.
If you find yourself thinking about the spirit world / ancestors more than you are connecting with daily life, that's a red flag. We all think about our lost ones. We do. It's one of those things. Sometimes it's a daily thing. Grief is a thing. However, there is a point where if you're not stepping into the realities of this human world, this human life that you are experiencing, then there is help out there. And I don't mean to sound patronizing, but it's really true. And I've been through really horrible grief. And I'm not saying that's worse than anybody else's, but I've experienced it. And you can find yourself too much there. And actually, I'm not being funny, but if we're talking about ancestor work with people who've passed recently, they wouldn't want you to be in that state.
It's 100% important to experience life, the highs and the lows, the difficulty, the sadness, but also the joy and the happiness. And on this pathway, I understand at some point my physical life will come to an end. And for anyone that is still experiencing this beautiful life, I would never want them to be in complete sadness. I would want to be able to come back, which I will. I've already told all my friends I'm going to be coming in and going, "Hello," when you least expect me. But I want my loved ones to know that I want their life to continue. And it's important for them to have those moments to feel, to feel into that sadness, but to also have tears of joy. And for them to know from me that I will always be beside them and I will come to them as much as I can if they call. But I think any one of our ancestors would want us to see us living life and being in the moment and experiencing all of the highs and the lows that life can offer. This is why we've chosen to be here. It's not to have a steady path. It's not to have a feeling of numbness. Being human is about experiencing all of that chaotic emotional energy.
So how do you guys approach the aspects of just being safe and considered about this work? Because there is, on social media, sometimes it can come across as a little bit scary. And I guess this is why Diane on Patreon's asked this question specifically. So what things would you say you need to consider when working with your ancestors?
Knowing why you're going to work with them, knowing what you're going to ask, and being ridiculously grounded and very aware of noticing your own body, noticing how you feel, whether that's a knotty stomach. Do I feel tight and tense? Have I got goosebumps that don't feel right? We've all been in that situation. I'm sure, whether in witchcraft or not, in the practice or not, we've all been in that situation where you've got, that feels not nice. Maybe don't push those moments. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have some form of fear. I'm not saying you should be scared, but I think it's okay to feel uncomfortable, particularly if you're doing something new. We're not always comfortable with doing new things. If you have got the hair standing up on the back of your neck, your throat feels tight, your stomach's in a big knot, maybe stop what you're doing.
So when you say grounding, do you use that as a form of protection, or should we have specific protections around doing very specific ancestor work? I mean, when we're walking and saying, I miss you, I love you, and doing all of those daily things, maybe not so much. But if you were sitting down to do some ritual work around ancestor work, what do you think is the most important thing around that?
You are going to open the door to anything, very likely. Now, this isn't about being scary, but what I would say to you is, are you going to leave your front door open in the middle of the night?
I am.
Yeah. Yeah, just leave it wide open.
You know my stance on protection.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
right?
that was really sarcastic. We will go into that in another episode. But of course, you should be protected. But again, it's not about the fear mongering. But you're absolutely correct. There are doors opening, aren't there? So
absolutely, you're opening the door. And if you wouldn't leave your front door wide open and then go to bed and leave it open all night, then maybe go a little bit careful. Now, everybody's going to have their different ways of protection. My way will be different from your way, Gail, as will be different from Anon's. Do I think lighting one black candle is going to be enough for that? No, I'm going to layer the protection up. I'm going to have the wards up, and I am going to set boundaries. I'm going to be very grounded in why I'm doing it, what I'm doing. Am I feeling comfortable enough within myself? Have I had a busy day where I'm not actually concentrating properly? Or have I got time to do this? It's all those things. You know, is the dog going to come suddenly racing into the room with a bone and, you know, no,
Yeah.
I'm gonna find that space. I'm gonna give it that time. I'm gonna have layered protection. And once I've opened doors, I'm going to close doors. And there's lots of information about how to do that, but it isn't the TikTok, right, we're gonna light a black candle and throw salt everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like this is a really good time for me to say, and I'm using that silly voice because I do Wild Wisdom, where I release a long form content video on my Patreon and on YouTube every Wednesday. And I think in a couple of weeks' time, I'm doing Protection Magic. It's only 2 episodes, and I've done it before on Patreon, but it's like those 10 steps: grounding, boundaries, centering. You know, it's not like saying the black candle and throwing salt. I mean, fine, but protection magic, boundaries, all of those things are going through those steps. So nice to let me mention it in the podcast.
No, like nice to have a nice lead.
But Anon, have you ever done spirit work and maybe had something come through that you didn't want?
No.
Because you're
No.
protected, you know what you're doing.
Well, not everyone is going to be called to work with ancestors, and I think that's important to recognize. You know, we've all got our own personalized practice. Some people may just be called to do their own ancestry. Some people might just be called to look at the history of where they're living or where they're from. And that's absolutely fine. We don't have to connect. I personally have been connecting with the other world or the other realms from a very young age. And there are family connections that I have built up that rapport with and that connection with. So I think it's important that we recognize that this can take time. It is about building up that relationship. So I feel safe working with those spirits and energies that I do. When I go into a new place, ultimately, I normally go to the same land space when I connect to the spirits of the land. But if I'm going somewhere new, I will have my charms on me, my protective charms. I will carry certain herbs in my pocket. But ultimately, I hold the consent of who can come near me within this physical world and within the spiritual realm. I will not allow any spirit to come anywhere near me or my family that holds any form of negative ill will. And I will go into that space with respect, ultimately first, but with reverence and with sovereignty. And if I feel that there is any energy overstepping my boundary, then my team come into play. Ancestral work doesn't necessarily need to be bloodline. It could be, you know, a loved one, a friend. But there are people that are worried and concerned about people that have passed, and that they're worried that they might try and quote unquote come through and try and connect with them. Again, very much like what I was saying about going into a space that is unknown, it's incredibly important to get to a point in this pathway where we understand the power within, we understand the source and the sovereignty within. And if you do not want a specific spirit that has passed to connect with you, you hold that power. You hold that boundary. And if you fully believe that you will not give your consent to that energy to come through, then they will not.
The thing with this is, I mean, sort of, I mentioned before about the TikTok voice capture. Now, that could have been a mic glitch. However, it was some very distinct words while I was talking about ancestors. Did I invite them in? No, they popped past. But did they overstep my personal boundaries? No. And from me, they got a nod. I know, I heard you. And as you know, you can go now. You've given me your message. Off you toddle. Thanks very much. Because they just wanted to be heard. I've had situations where, because I have quite strong boundaries, because I am sensitive, I have been connected with and people have shouted at me for a very good reason.
I was
as
going to
a
say, I'm not surprised. You're asking for so bloody much, Vic. They're going to
yeah,
go.
I know. Yeah, I mean, again, crazy little story. Crazy story. My husband at the time. This is probably about 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was when my children were little, and my husband was ill, and he'd been to the GP, and he was on antibiotics, and I had to go into the next town over. So I packed up my little one, my youngest, who was tiny then, put them in the car, went to drive to where I was going, and a voice shouted in the car. And the voice sounded very, very similar to the one that came on the TikTok. So if you could imagine that voice, and it just said, turn around, go home. Really shouted. I mean, now I thought I was mad. Said it again. Turn around, go home. I'm not any form of medium. I happen to just be a little bit sensitive, and I have very big boundaries up, but this was shouty at me. I turned round the roundabout. I went back home, went into the house to find my husband in septic shock. So
Yeah.
that saved his life. The fact that I listened and they shouted above my boundaries was actually quite important.
Yeah.
So I think that happens all the time. No, that situation has happened to me once.
I've got a similar story, haven't I, Vic, that I told you about, which
Yeah.
I won't go into, but I think there are times where your spiritual protection, your spiritual team will allow that incredible important message to come through. But whomever is or whatever is bringing that message in knows your own boundaries as well. And there's a specific importance to that. I think for me, it is ultimately understanding the power within, and really believing within your own magic, within your own power. And, if you have to shout out loud for something to remove itself, but you have that full belief in your own strength, your emotional strength, your physical strength, your spiritual strength, then it will be.
So thanks for sharing that, ladies. But actually, I think it's another important fact is you guys have been practicing witchcraft for, don't want to say out loud, maybe 20 years or more, both of you. So, and the experience there cannot be underestimated. So any new practitioners coming into this, these aren't the type of things that happen as you're starting out. You need to be fully grounded and understand and listen and work with our ancestors and our spirit guides. It is a reciprocal relationship. So Vicky, I've got no doubt that you've spent years building that relationship ahead of having that insane message, right? It's not like it just happens. And so we do need to build up that relationship and honor and do all the things that we talked about here. Small steps first.
And I will say I've spent a lot of years putting boundaries up so that I didn't have to deal with it, because I don't personally like it that much. It's not my bag. It's not that I hate it. I'll accept it, but I have very, very strong boundaries up.
So in reality, every witch connects with ancestors and spirits in their own way. And today we've shared some of the grounded, lived approaches that work for us. And this isn't about theatrics, and we don't want to put fear into anybody either. This is about no nonsense approach to working with your ancestors and spirit guides. So do let us know what you think. As always, we really appreciate the feedback, and drop us any questions you have, because that leads us on very nicely to our Come Sit With Us listener questions. And this week, our question is from Sassy Lassie on Patreon. And she's asked, what is our favourite spell to cast, and what is your favourite tool to do it? Who wants to take the floor first? Shall I go first?
Yes.
Go for it, girl.
So this is going to be really boring, right? But my favourite spell, it's not like what we're seeing on social media, but it's more about my connection to the land. And I absolutely adore picking up stones, working with sticks, out in nature, speaking intention to it, and whatever that may be. That may be a releasing spell, that may be road unblocker, across roads working, but whatever that may be, speaking intention and then letting it go into a stream. And it can also be intention setting, but I don't often ask for big things. I take that sort of stuff on myself to build momentum and manifest my own lives. I'm not asking my spirit guides to help support with that, but for me, It's just about holding a piece of nature, speaking or whispering into whatever that may be at the time, dependent on what working I'm doing, because I'll always use correspondences as well, and then letting the river take it.
Love
But I do
that.
layer it up because it's usually on a moon phase. You know me, moon phase,
Oh, so
some sort of herby
pinched
thing.
what
But
I was
yeah,
going to say on the layering up thing.
yeah. Did I steal yours?
You did. I was going to say the layering up thing.
Oh,
So, yeah, so mine, clearly I layer up as well. We all layer up. It's not just one thing, not just one thing. But I have to say, I'm torn. I'm torn between three things. But so I get the layering up answer. Okay. I love not work, traditional not work. You guys knew that I was going to say that, didn't you?
no, I didn't, but I understand it because it is an amazing piece of
It's
spell work, and I know
amazing. It's so good. If you don't know about not work, you need to go learn. It's really good.
we'll go over to your Patreon, right? Or
Come over to my
follow on
Patreon. That will be
socials.
one of the next ones up. A little brief on not work. Not work and poppets, which is actually already up on my Patreon. A very, very brief introductory for free. We will go deeper, and this isn't a plug, but we will go deeper, and that will be paid for because that's a lot of work for me to produce. Poppets, sympathetic magic. So sympathetic magic, really like a good poppet. I really do. And not work. And that sounds really weird for me being a green witch because you think, oh no, should people be about the plants? But I stuff those things with the plants that I grow from the garden. I layer them up. I like a little bit of elemental magic in that as well.
Hey.
That's probably my favorite sort of spell. Particular, whether it be, I don't know, love, finance, that type of thing. If somebody's asking that, I don't have a particular one of those.
Social media is so good at talking about justice work, and it's one of the things that I do the least. But I think everybody really wants to go, oh yeah, love doing a bit of baneful. Love to put
The baneful. I'm not knocking baneful because there are people who really work really well with that. My life is about balance. If I can get balance, and that doesn't mean necessarily justice, but just balance. If life is balanced, there's not too much hectic going on, we're all good.
I have to think about this one. I would say one of my favorite spells now, it wasn't when I was younger, is I suppose connected to the altar of self. So my own form of altar to me is mirror work.
Ooh.
I know that might sound a little bit bizarre, but it's taken me a long, long time, genuinely, to look in the mirror and to love who I am. And, you know, when I was growing up, I wasn't your classical, what you would deem to be this beautiful aesthetic girl. You know, I was me. I was the wild child with frizzy hair and freckles, and I loved my food. What can I say, you know? And I loved me. I think there were parts of you know, society, children my own age that maybe didn't like the look of me. And I think over time, without me really being truthful to myself, it knocked my confidence. And I started doubting me. I started doubting my own magic, which I am ashamed to say, but that was part of my growth. And I've come to a point in my life now where I can genuinely look in the mirror, look into my own eyes, and say how proud I am of me and how beautiful I am. And you know what? If no one thinks that, then I don't care. I don't care anymore.
Do you know what? I love that. I love that you love that. Does that make sense? I think that's so
Yeah.
empowering. How amazing is that?
I absolutely adore it, and it is actually one of the final things that I taught on my embodiment course. You know, the 4-week course that I did.
Yeah.
And it was actually the activity to go away and do this mirror work because it's so key. Like understanding ourselves, appreciating all of our edges, the good and the bad, because we need to love all aspects of ourselves, and looking at ourselves in the mirror and that glamour work is so underrated because we always think it's about beauty, and it's not. It's not about finding our beauty, it's about finding ourselves, right? Because we are all beautiful. Like that's just a fact.
Also, I think being okay with being seen.
Mm-hmm.
You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to be sovereign. And that's all a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think loving self, and I know it's talked about a lot, but but truly loving your inner soul, your spirit. You know, glamour work isn't about aesthetically looking as pretty as what social media demands males and females and everybody else to have a certain look. It's about the person you are and seeing yourself for that and loving you. And I think when you truly, deeply, and passionately love who you are, the scars and all, that's when your magic has power. Yeah. That's when everything comes together on your pathway.
Do you know some of the most beautiful people that you will see are wrinkly, wizened old people, and they have got that spark in their eye that is just amazing, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful, and
It's an air about them, isn't it?
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
that essence.
Oh, thanks, ladies. I know you're talking about me, and that's absolutely wonderful. I
think
am
you're one of the
old and
biggest.
wrinkly and wizened. Oh my God. So thank you for listening to Between Three Witches, Witchcraft in Plain Sight. If this episode resonated, you're welcome to sit with it, share it, or let it unfold in its own time. So you can find me, Vicky, and Anon all over social media. I'm going to put in the show notes all of our links so you can go and follow us over there. And make sure you come back for episode 4. We are going to talk about curses, hexes, and the ethics around justice work, which is going to be a great podcast. So until next time, may your practice meet you exactly where you are.